Hello and welcome to another Mapping It Out Wednesday. And this Wednesday, we have someone with us, Akila, that is very near and dear to me. He's a gentleman that I met during the pandemic, actually. I think that's when we met, Jeff, during the pandemic. And I got to know really well. And now the exciting news is that he's started his own consultancy. And so I'm super excited to hear about this. And he was also your client as well. We're talking about you, Jeff, like you're not in the room. Jeff Crane, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Jeff, thank you so much for being on here. I am thrilled to have someone who went through the motivational process to talk about their experience. But before we go about on that, maybe you can give a little bit, like you saw one of the shows, Marie invited you, you came to it, and then you applied for in the raffle, you won the experience. So could you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what made you want to do the motivational map?
That's an easy question because I'm kind of a geek for all different types of assessments. So um, I find them very interesting, not always useful and practical. So I think the first episode that I had watched was, I'm forgetting his name, maybe Zaroon, maybe? I'm trying to remember his name, but it
A
was
fawn,
really, well, that, I'm
a
sorry,
fawn, a fawn.
Afan. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Um, no, but it was really an interesting model to me because I didn't, it's not a way that I've thought of the world. And I found it very fascinating and then was really honored and appreciative to have earned that service with you. So in that time, so that was, as a raffle winner, I can say that was an excellent use of my time and really an interesting experience. So I really appreciated that.
And I appreciated you. Now, when we like the experience meant there was a debrief and then there was a coaching.
Mhm.
And what made this assessment different from the others you have taken?
So I think this assessment was much deeper than many of the other tools, whether that's, and I've only done self-assessments for some of those, whether that's Myers-Briggs or I've had DISC as part of project teams.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what to do with those resources necessarily. It's interesting, but it's like, okay, these are the labels we've put on, but what does that mean? It's difficult to kind of put anything in action. I think for me, the debrief was almost a little bit unnerving because I felt like you could read my thoughts often through the comments you were saying. So that was it almost caught me off guard. So I'm a willing participant in that, but I could see where if their boss was heavy, I'm thinking it's a little bit mind reading. So
Yeah.
it was really interesting. And I think in that comment, I think it was very accurate to what I value at my core. And I thought that was really interesting.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because whenever we do a debrief, even if I'm doing it for a company, everyone gets their debrief done privately. When we do the group debriefs, we talk about things that are pertinent to the group, not to them as individuals. And sometimes, like in one situation, I had where both the boss and the assistant wanted me to sort of mediate what was going on there. And they both gave permission that we could disclose some of their unhappiness, where they were unhappy and why.
Mhm.
And that was a very different conversation. And I'm always proud to say that it's now been over 5 years and they're still together.
Wow.
It
That's
also
team
worked for,
cohesion.
yeah, it also worked for couples, because it helps them to get to know each other at a level. For me, I never really understood my husband until we'd been married 34 years when we did this. And it was like, oh, so that's why we have different points of views. And
Mhm.
in many ways, it allowed me to respect his strengths better because when they clashed with mine, but for example, I am go forward, it's straight ahead and darn the torpedoes. And he is, whoa, let's see what's going on here before we take that move.
Mhm.
And I used to feel almost like he was putting a brake on my thoughts. I realized afterwards that's what he needs. And when he does that, it helps me to get some sober second thought. And my go ahead helps him to move forward. So we were very complementary, even though on the surface it looked like we were not. You know? So that was amazing. Now, after the debrief, like, okay, before we move on from the debrief, what did you find? Did you find anything that was surprising? Perhaps that you have your top 3 motivators and what they meant to you.
I think I wonder if I had guessed those having known the model a bit beforehand, if I would have had the same result as what I thought I would have. I didn't do that. But afterwards, I do think those top 3 motivators make a lot of sense. What was interesting to me, there was 2 things that I found really interesting. One that you mentioned in the debrief was that my profile often would be not in line with what my historical career had been. So I had been in accounting and finance. I had started as a staff accountant, was corporate controller most recently. And I found joy in that because I like numbers, but it didn't satisfy me in other ways. And what I had found in my career was I found ways looking through this lens to satisfy that differently. So I had found ways to utilize expert and searcher and friend within the roles that were kind of outside of the norm of what would have been within those roles. So I thought that was really interesting. And then I think one of the other things that was interesting to me was the opposite end, where I tend to have conflict as I reflect. I've had conflict with people that I would assume maybe were on the lower end of my motivators, which I think that was director and star was the bottom 2. So I think those two motivators, I probably devalue and maybe have made character assessments about people because I don't understand their motivation. And I think that was really interesting for me to look back and think about who I've had tension with within roles and maybe understand why. And maybe that wasn't a character attribute. Maybe they're motivated differently than I am. And I've probably misattributed that to their character. And I think that was probably a mistake. Not that I had bad working relationships. It wasn't that, but I think where I would experience tension and I would look back and probably if they had taken this model, I bet they would have been strong in one of those 2 or both of those 2. And those are low for me. So very low. So,
well, one of my toss away sentences is that there is no such thing as personality conflicts. There's motivational conflicts. Because remember, it's the motivation that drives the behaviors.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And then we have, of course, we had the follow-up coaching. And you had something very specific you wanted to be coached on. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I was in the midst, I had taken that and that was in the first few weeks of starting this business. So I think the topic was on how to use this tool to help me understand how to network better, because that's probably not been a strong suit in my career. I value relationships with people, and I think one of the elements within this map is I like deep knowledge, deep meaning, and deep relationships. Like those are my 3 core motivators, and I'm not very confident or don't feel strong at maintaining a wide network of people because for me it's difficult to have relationships that are very intermittent or not deep. Like I don't see a lot of value in that. So that was an interesting session for me just to think about how am I going to approach this challenge, because my motivators may not suit what needs to be done in starting this business. So I'd love to say that that's gone perfectly and I've attacked it well, but I think it's part of who I am. So I think it's just something that I have to consistently have a focus and aim towards and a plan for. And I'm working on that, but it's a struggle.
Exactly. And to me, that is one of the strengths of the motivational maps, because with awareness comes the fact that, okay, this is an area I have to work on. This is an area I not have to, I want to work on. And this is, and knowing how others can perceive you can help you to change your behavior, not to be inauthentic, but
Yeah.
to try to show them who you truly are.
Yeah.
Jeff, I have a quick question along that lines, because as you were talking, I did think the exact same thing that Akilah just said, which is that self-awareness allows you now to work on that if that's what you choose. Do you think prior to doing the assessment that you had that self-awareness of how deep you want, how deep your motivation is around relationship and knowledge?
At some level, yes, but I wouldn't have probably articulated it that well. Um, I think on the relationship side, yes, but maybe not the meaning and the knowledge. I think for me, I always have preferred a few deep friends to a wide net of friends. That's just how I've been since youth. However, I didn't really think of how people may view me. So, I don't want to steal any leads here, but my top motivator was expert, and expert seeks knowledge, and not for the sake of flaunting it or showing it, but it's actually for the sake of sharing it for me.
Exactly.
Right.
And what I've probably not been aware of in that pursuit or that desire as a motivation is how that can be perceived by others that may not see that or may not have a trust and rapport with me.
Mhm.
They may have different thoughts on what motivates them. So they may see that as a threat, or they may see that as I'm trying to showboat and be a know-it-all or whatever. But that's never been my intent. When I learn something interesting, I want to share it with the world. So that's how I've always been. And if somebody can benefit from that, that's the core of what I'm trying to do as a business. Is I think there's a current and future need for organizations to be healthier, and that's what I want to do. So I want to share that because I think I've tapped into the source of good knowledge on that. So
Absolutely. And like I said, your top three motivators align perfectly with what you're doing. You're somebody who wants to get the knowledge, which is your expert, to share with organizations so you can help them be better and their people, which is your searcher. And
Yeah.
you like making connections with people who are interested in those same things. They share your values.
Mhm.
And that is exactly, I think that for me, that is the number one indicator that you are going to be fantastic in your business because you're doing it for the right reasons. You love it. You're happy about it. What else can we want in life?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's actually a really great lead in to Jeff. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your business and what your mission and the vision is.
Yes.
Yeah. So so it's the company's called Kairos Consulting, and really the purpose behind it is I view joy as an expression of people's gifts, and I think people deserve to have joy and fulfillment through their work.
Mhm.
And the way we go about that is to cultivate healthier teams. We have a couple different tools and strategies, and someday I'd love to be able to do motivational maps as well because I think it fits nicely within the frameworks. But also to help organizations be more clear. So in the places I've worked and the clients I've worked with, a lot of times people are struggling for clarity. We have strategic plans, or we have these initiatives, or we have goals, and we just struggle to be clear and consistent on what we're aiming at as an organization. And that creates really divisive and teams battling each other and frustrating for everyone and more stressful than it has to be. So I want to make work joyful, and that's a hard thing to probably for people to think about, but I think it can be. And I think when work is fun, it makes things amazing and teams really thrive.
I
I'm
love
with you. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we're all in alignment with
Yeah.
it's great. Now you mentioned organizational health previously when Akilah asked you a little bit about it. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you, organizational health? I'm cheating because I already know because we are
Yeah.
colleagues and friends, but I'd love for you to share that.
So yeah, I don't know necessarily the origin of that. I think it's Patrick Lencioni, but the book The Advantage that he wrote talks a lot about organizational health, and really the concept is that organizations need to be healthy and smart. So they might focus or over-index on things like finance or marketing or strategy, and that's the smart side of their business. But the healthy side is low politics, low turnover, high morale, high productivity, and really having an engaged workforce.
Yep.
And that sounds soft or fluffy to a lot of people, I think, especially I come from finance. So a lot of the finance people probably would look at that and go, that's, show me the numbers. But I think it's difficult to prove. But I think throughout our lives, maybe you've been part of a team or a group that has achieved success beyond the 1+1 = 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think health is probably best defined as that within an organization. When everybody finds their strengths and plays to their strengths, the whole team achieves more than anyone or the sum of the individuals could have. So that's to me what it means. And that's what I want to help organizations do, is unlock that.
Well, what you've just done there in your last couple of statements is you defined why I started my business, because I look at it in a different way. We use different words, but for me, it's fulfillment. If people are being fulfilled at work, they are going home less stressed. They are not going to be shouting at their spouse. They're not going to be drinking. They're not going to want to have to go out and gamble or do drugs. And those were things I saw when I was a financial advisor. So
Yeah.
it wasn't just, it can happen. It did happen. And that's because people were very unhappy, sometimes with what they're doing, sometimes with who they're working for, especially in situations when they feel bullied or they're belittled and they're just put down at work because somebody else wants to feel like they are better than them. And it made me realize that, money is important, but more than money, it's how you are treated at work and how you feel about your work and your workplace that is so very, very important.
Yeah, I completely agree. So that's one of the things that in Patrick Lencioni's work, he's mentioned similar things, and that really resonated with me is, who you go home as really matters to your life. So if you're having a bad day at work, that doesn't stop there, and it comes home to your family, and nobody wants that. And I think in today's day and age with burnout and turnover the way it is, and I think there's more and more discussion of mental health, and I think generational issues where different generations are craving things and attention to this type of thing. And people want a collaborative workforce, and they don't want to be miserable in their jobs, and I don't think they should be.
100%.
And I've got to say something that I know a lot of people disagree with, but I think a very important part of the answer is AI. That's why I've added AI consulting to my HR. And the reason for that is one of the reasons people are so overwhelmed, especially in the last decade, with the information doubling every day. I remember in 2018, I was doing a webinar, and my research showed that people had lost 1 day a week to simply looking for information. And nobody else was going to do the rest of their jobs. It had to be done. So now with AI, if people understand some of the basics use, it can get them what they need quickly, effortlessly, and done well, which frees up their time. Some people may want to work a shorter work week. Some people may want, and a lot of people are saying, but it's going to cause great job loss. Yes, we see Amazon and some of these big companies laying off people. Personally, I think that is short-sighted. The way I work with my clients is what is it you've always wanted to do in your company that you didn't have the resources to do? Let's see where AI could make a difference, if it could free up 20, 30, 40% of your time or your people's time. And then we take the people who already know your company, who already like working for your company, and let's get them up to where they can help take you to the next step. That's my philosophy. And I say, I know that is in a very, very small percentage, but hopefully I'm like Don Quixote. I love tilting at windmills.
It sort of what you just said, and also Jeff too. It reminds me of Google time. You know, I can't remember if it's the 90s or early 2000s, where a lot of the inventions that Google created, like Gmail and now the Office suite of Google, so to speak, all happened in the 20% of time that people got to do whatever they wanted, to explore their interest. And I was thinking about that as you were talking about how while your career path has been finance and you have excelled in that career, you also found a way to incorporate the things that you're passionate about. You know, how do we help people? You know, our motto is going home whole, right? But it really is the same model as both of you have spoken of. And just in thinking about how you've really done that, like you've carved out that time to figure out how to help your teams succeed, how to be collaborative, how to work together for the betterment of themselves as well as the organization. It really does speak to the idea that we are in a space where all of this will be successful in terms of as people free up more time to be able to do the work that's meaningful, it will improve their companies and their organizations. And I'm really excited for companies to work with you doing that, because I think they're going to get some amazing, amazing support and strategies from you, Jeff. So where can people find you?
So they can find me on the web. It's kairos-orghealth.com. Or my email is jeff@kairos-orghealth.com.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being here. And I have to say, I would love perhaps for us to have you back here in a year to see how far you have gone, because I know you will go far, and you know you could always count on us for support if you need it.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you both.
Thank you. So if you want to be like Jeff in terms of being able to be a winner of a wonderful motivational map assessment, debrief, and coaching from Akila Davis, our amazing maestro of motivation, please go ahead and click that link in the comment and fill out that form, and you can possibly win an experience of motivational maps that can really change the course of what you think about when you think about motivation and much, much more in your life. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you. And have a wonderful Independence Day next week. And we're going to enjoy Canada Day. It's a week of holidays.
Happy Canada.